Now, a WLOX News special presentation, Reflections of Honor.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight for Reflections of Honor. I'm Jeff Lawson at the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C., the place that honors the service and the sacrifice of our wonderful World War II veterans. It took many decades, though, before this memorial was ever built. And sadly, in those years, many of our World War II veterans had passed away. Senator Bob Dole was instrumental in getting this memorial built. He said at the time when it was finished that every World War II veteran should get to see their memorial. Well, thus started the Honor Flight program with chapters all over the country, including the Mississippi Gulf Coast Honor Flight, which started about 2.5 years ago. In that time, that organization has brought 7 plane loads, nearly 600 of our Mississippi World War II veterans here to see their memorial. Tonight, a look back.
It all began early one morning in May of 2011 with a police escort of the buses carrying the veterans. As soon as the first group of Mississippi Honor Flight veterans arrived, they already knew it would be a magnificent day.
Elation, man, elation. I'm just thrilled to death.
Thus began the first of 7 honor flights, each trip carrying anywhere from 70 to 90 World War II veterans and guardians, along with the wonderful volunteers who made it all possible. All the flights followed much the same agenda, a direct flight on a charter jet to D.C.'s Reagan National. And every time, volunteers at the airport there to say thanks and welcome.
Hey! God bless you, brother.
Thank you.
The first stop at the nation's capital was always the World War II Memorial. And as they would gather to make their entrance, without exception, every trip, bystanders would stop by to honor the greatest generation.
I haven't stopped crying since I got here. I lost my dad in February of this year. He was 90, and he never saw it. I'm so proud of these men.
And then, moments before they're to enter the place that honors their sacrifice and their bravery, you look in their eyes, and you can't help but wonder if their thoughts go back to decades ago in the war that changed the world. The bagpipes play, and our Mississippi veterans see for the first time their memorial. The 90 minutes they're here gives the Mississippi veterans time to reflect and to remember. One veteran holds the hands of his great-grandchildren and undoubtedly hopes and prays they never come to know the horror of war.
This is a dream come true.
Well, we're glad. We're glad that you're here.
Never ever thought it would happen. Well, I'm really excited now. It's amazing. Wonderful.
It's the place where the nation says thanks to the generation that gave so much and asked for so little. The memorial also pays tribute to those who gave their all.
We went into combat with 12,000, and guess how many of us got out? It was 138.
On one side of the memorial, the stars that represent the 400,000 soldiers who died defending our freedom. For some here on this day, it's almost overwhelming.
I don't like to look at it.
I've seen too much of it. I've seen them knocked down on each side of me. I made it that far.
Men killed on both sides.
Yeah, both sides. I got through that.
With this Mississippi veteran on the trip to the memorial, his nephew.
I'm 22 years old.
How old were you when you went to war?
18.
He was 4 years younger than you are now.
It's
When you look at this in his eyes today, what do you see, Jared?
a heck of a man. I can promise you that. All of them are.
Many of these veterans were barely out of high school when they went off to war. Every visit of our Mississippi veterans was powerful and emotional. The gift they gave us can be summed up in one word: freedom. The trip to Washington would also include a stop at the Korean War Memorial. Many of the veterans would also go by the Vietnam Memorial Wall. On the last honor flight, we went along as a father who served in World War II and a son who was a medic in Vietnam went to the wall for the very first time.
I'm about ready to bust out crying. Thank you for your service to the military by paying the ultimate sacrifice in God's name. God bless you. God bless you all.
The The day will also include a visit to the Iwo Jima Memorial, and the last 2 trips added a stop at the Air Force Memorial, where on Flight 6 we saw one of those precious moments that span the generations. A 15-year-old boy from Arkansas sees our veterans and asks them to autograph his T-shirt.
What do you see when you look in these guys' eyes?
I don't know, it's just real heroes. It's cool to see them here.
The last stop on each trip, Arlington National Cemetery.
It is requested that everyone remain silent and standing.
The symbolic end of our veterans' journey is a laying of a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns. Then by late afternoon, it's back to Reagan National and more reminders about what makes America so great.
Glory, glory, hallelujah, his truth is marching on.
On the flight home, mail call, just like back in the day.
Because he was in a tank condition, they know he was in the tank.
When the plane load of veterans would land, a sight that would touch everybody's heart. On the tarmac are Coast military folks, showing their respect for those who came before them. And inside the airport, every trip an extraordinary scene, as thousands of South Mississippians would turn out to show how much they love our veterans.
As those caissons go rolling along.
How's it make you feel?
Choked up. How lucky can I get?
It was the war that changed the world, and these men and women are who we have to thank for our freedoms today. The words of President Truman still ring true when he said of those who fought in World War II, "They have earned our undying gratitude. America will never forget their sacrifices."
It truly has been an amazing journey here to the World War II Memorial, all thanks to some terrific volunteers who put it all together. When we come back tonight, we'll hear from some of those volunteers, as well as a couple of the veterans who've made the trip. Reflections of Honor continues in just a moment. Welcome back to Reflections of Honor. Now we're back in our WLOX studios, and I am proud to say I'm joined by 8 absolutely terrific people. These folks are 6 of whom are members of the Honor Flight staff, and 2 fine gentlemen who are World War II veterans. We're going to be hearing from all 8 of these people tonight who have some very, very interesting things to say. The 6 folks who are members of the Honor Flight staff all have gone on all 7 of those flights to the nation's capital, so they're veterans, if you will, at that. But speaking of veterans, since you all have been on each of those trips, what did you learn about our World War II veterans from these 7 honor flights? Wayne, let's start with you.
Jeff, I'd have to say the first thing that comes to mind would be humility, the humility of that generation, coupled with their strength, obviously. But, and I got my thoughts go back to something David Wolf said early on about why there was never a memorial built until, actually, I guess it was the last one built, is that this generation would have had to build it for themselves because they went off to war, did a job, came home, went back to work. And 60 years later, they got a memorial built by the next generation, you know, in their honor.
Kim Foster Moody, you're the president of the organization. What'd you learn about these people?
They're very humble. They, a lot of them never thought that people cared, and they are always surprised on how much appreciation we all have for them, whether it's a school kid, whether it's an adult. I mean, they're very shocked by the amount of
the humility.
Yeah,
that
they're just
Absolutely.
completely surprised.
Jen, one thought from those 7 trips, what would it be?
Incredible. It's something that, I don't know, it's indescribable.
These 2 World War II veterans we have here, 2 of the finest gentlemen you ever meet. Mr. Emmett Simmons, a World War II veteran on Honor Flight number 1, which was in May of 2011, and Mr. Jim Forensic, whom from this point forward I will do what he asked me to do and call him Sergeant Forensic, both Jackson County residents. Mr. Simmons, there are 5 simple words that come out of so many people's mouths when they meet you World War II veterans. And I want to know what those 5 words mean to you. They say to you guys and ladies, thank you for your service. When you hear that, Mr. Simmons, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm humble, for one thing, because we never did think of ourselves as just the boys and the women from the hills and the streets and the plains and wherever we were called to for service. Just love of God and love of country, and we were so anxious to be a part of it.
Mr. Forensic, Sergeant Forensic, same question. Thank you for your service. So many people, young, old, all races, come to you and say that. What does that mean when you're a World War II veteran?
Pride, for one thing. I hate to admit it, but it goes with being humble, too. We're not heroes. We weren't heroes. We were draftees, most of us. But the fact remained that we knew we had to have a job to do. Our president told us that we had a job to do. And so we went out and did it. And like Wayne said, we came back then after the wars, and we made a life for ourselves.
Every single World War II veteran, and you just said it, says we're not heroes. But then the next thing you say is that the heroes are the ones who didn't come home. At that memorial, and you all know this as well as I do, at that memorial, really one of the most touching things is the wall of stars. There were 4,000 stars on that memorial. They represent the 400,000 young men who never came home. These guys did. They raised families, their fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers. Mr. Simmons, look at this. This is you just a moment ago. That was you on flight number 1 looking at those stars. We had a shot of you, very pensive, just glancing at those stars. And that was back in May of 2011. When you looked at those stars, what were you thinking, sir?
I really was standing somewhat in grief for the families that never were able to experience what I did, to come back to a sweetheart, have a family, blessed with children and grandchildren, and live a long time. And that caption on the bottom, Jeff, the price of freedom is not free. And it was a thing of pride for those. And I thought of it, and I said, except for the grace of God, I'd be among those.
When you booked the first flight with U.S. Airways, and you didn't have much time to get everybody together, you hadn't raised any money yet, and it was cost about $80,000. Was there ever a thought, Teddy, Jody, was there ever a thought, we really want to do this, but I don't know if we can pull this off?
For a few minutes there, I thought we were crazy. But, you know, we started working, and everyone pitched in. There's 2 of us that was tired, and we dedicated a lot of times to hitting the streets. And then people like Wayne and the other ones at work, they worked the telephone. And then as we got through our first flight and we built a corps of guardians from our first flight, it sort of expanded out and they started to help us.
Were there ever any sleepless nights, Jody, wondering if you can get all this together?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you start with nothing, and when we decided that we were going to do it, we only had a couple months to raise all the money for the trip. And we had to come up with a down payment for the airplane, and we had to borrow for the down payment. Of course, didn't have anything, you know, and that big payment was due on the rest of the plane. We didn't know what we were going to do, but it happened.
Well, we would be remiss if we didn't mention trip number 6, because trip number 6 is the trip that got all the national publicity. But we have a clip of a portion of the story that we ran that next night, kind of looking back at just a portion of that whole incident when the government shutdown had the World War II memorial to these wonderful veterans shut off from them. Let's take a look at that now. When they get to their memorial, the sign and the barriers confirm what the veterans had feared. How tragic that these men and women who gave so much and never asked for any thanks over the decades would be kept away from their memorial. As the minutes went on, 91 Mississippi World War II veterans could only look at the memorial from a distance.
You want to cry. I mean, it's so good. We're just so sorry that we can't go in.
Let's get it right. Let's get this country right.
It looked like the vets would have to be satisfied with picture taking from outside the barriers. But then suddenly and unexpectedly, some of the congressmen at the site, including Stephen Palazzo, decide they will open the gates. Our guys are in. Visitors applaud. The bagpipe player plays. All of a sudden, a good day becomes a great day. Wayne, you're the guy who kind of handles us characters in the media, okay? So you were kind of on the forefront of that whole thing. What were your, looking back at it, what are your thoughts of that whole thing?
That day?
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you called that early that morning and said, hey, it's open, I was relieved, and I thought, well, maybe, you know, maybe the shutdown won't affect us. The shutdown had happened, we knew it, but I thought, well, maybe this one thing they'll leave open and it just won't affect us like we had feared. Yeah. We really didn't know what to expect. We just knew we wanted to get our veterans there as close as we could get them to at least see it, to at least get them there to see it, with the hopes that with 91 World War II vets lined up against a barricade between them and their memorial, that maybe somebody would change their mind, you know, and it turned out okay.
Yeah, crazy, crazy situation. Life is about moments. It's been said many a times, and sometimes there are very special moments, magical moments at that memorial. Something happened, not directly connected to the memorial, but yes, in a way it is, on flight number 6. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened there, involving a couple family members. Here it is. There were moments of sheer joy.
Daddy!
Like when a daughter who came all the way from Arizona surprises her dad, one of our Mississippi World War II veterans.
You said you'd be here.
What was this moment like just a moment ago?
Awesome. Awesome. So proud of him.
It's overwhelming.
All right, and that gentleman is the gentleman you're looking right at right there, Sergeant Forensic. When you, as a World War II veteran in your 80s, okay, not only were you at the memorial, but your daughter was there, which was a total surprise, and your daughter said, I am so proud of my daddy. What does that mean to you?
I used the word, and I'm going to use it now. Overwhelming. Yeah. It really was.
Yeah. Well, that was a special moment.
Heartfelt.
Yeah.
Heartfelt, wonderful.
Wow.
What a memory to go.
The entire purpose of these honor flights, folks, is to get these veterans to see their memorial. That is the bottom line. And these folks that you're looking at right here are some of the key players in getting those veterans to see their memorial. Now, sadly, there are some veterans who have passed away, who got to see their memorial, but have passed away since then. These are those veterans. It's on the mgchonorflight.org webpage. World War II veterans, folks, who the one and only reason they got to see their memorial is because of the honor
Flight Committee. These volunteers who were not paid, who have dedicated many, many hours. I can say that I had the pleasure, I had the honor to interview a few of those fine gentlemen in that picture. Anybody who wants to comment about that? I mean, Kim, that's why you do all this.
That is why we do it. And like our encore flight that we weren't going to do, the 7th flight, I mean, part of the reason we did do it, and we did do it quickly, is the facts are, I mean, the veterans, you know, they are passing away. We have some veterans who never got to make the flight. You know, we had some that were on whichever flight it might have been, the 4th flight, the 5th flight, or the 6th flight, and the 7th flight, who have passed away prior to making it. And so it was just a priority for us to serve all the veterans from Mississippi. And I think that's one thing that we can all be really proud of is we were successful. Of everyone who wanted to go on the flight that was a World War II veteran was able to go.
Sergeant Forensic, you came back on flight number 6.
Yes, sir.
Were you stunned when you saw thousands of people at our airport?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Men do cry, sir. Okay. Yes. Astounding feeling. Yeah. I saw all of my great-grandchildren there, too. Whew. Yeah. Super good.
Lori.
Yes.
You were on all 7 trips.
Yes,
when
sir.
you look in the eyes of these World War II veterans, what do you see?
A lot of mixed emotions. Some of them have closure when they've been on the trip. Some of them go on the trip and have never talked about the war. And when they come home, they open up to their families and explain to them what service they did for our country to make it free.
I just saw a love for country and a love of God and a love of people. And they wanted to express it by making this wonderful thing happen for our veterans.
Well, you are known as the greatest generation. I mean, you know that. These volunteers are pretty great, too.
Amen.
You know, they're pretty great as well.
I agree.
And part of the reason we wanted to do this program is to let them know how much they're loved and how much they're appreciated. And the bottom line, what we saw earlier when we put up the graphic of the gentlemen who have passed away since they went to their memorial, they would have never had a chance to see that memorial if not for these good folks. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all on behalf of this community. Thank you all for what you've done. All right. Folks, we'll be back in just a moment. We're going to take you and our program tonight by taking you back to the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. Stay tuned. It hardly seems possible. It's been almost 2.5 years since the first Mississippi Gulf Coast Honor Flight came here to the World War II Memorial. It has been a wonderful way to say thank you to our veterans for their service and their dedication and their bravery. They leave behind a precious legacy. God bless our World War II veterans. at the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. I'm Jeff Lawson for WLOX News.
Detail, attention!
How about this reception?
Oh, it's the best I've ever seen. I love it.